Hello and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to take you through my top 5 exercises for you to grow your calves. Now before I get started, there are 2 things that I need to say. The first one is when programming calf exercises, you should program them the same as you would for any other exercise. So, a lot of people within the fitness community have said that because your calves are constantly being worked throughout the day, all the time you're walking around, you have a low intensity, it's just your body weight, which the calves can easily manage, but high volume. So you're accumulating lots of volume in the calves walking around all day, that calves somehow need to then be trained different to other muscles. They advise that you use high volume training to match that high volume that the calves can already do, and do sets of 20, 30, 40, 50. You need to do lots of reps with the calves to get them to grow. I completely disagree with this, and the reason is because you are walking around and providing a low intensity, high volume training stimulus to your calves anyway. And if they're not getting big doing that, you need to change the stimulus on the calves to get them to adapt and get bigger. If you do have big calves just from walking around all day, that will often happen for heavier individuals. If you're say 250, 300 pounds, if you weigh a lot, your calves will probably get big just from the stimulus of you walking around. You are probably not the people watching this video. So if you, however, have not big calves from walking around, you need to change the way that your calves are being hit. So I would program them the same way I'd program any other muscle. You might do 2 or 3 exercises for 2 to 3 sets for 10 to 12 reps. Classic hypertrophy programming for your calves, and just load them appropriately. Add more weight. Your calves are strong. Add more weight until you do reach muscular fatigue or failure within those 10 to 12 reps. And the second thing that I have to say is that, as always, there are 4 things that I'm looking for from an exercise when judging how good it is. How much of a stretch the muscle gets during the exercise, how much of contraction the muscle gets, how isolated the muscle is, and how heavy you can load the muscle. Of those factors, I prioritize isolation, because if you fully isolate a muscle, it has to do all the work and it has to adapt to that training stimulus you're applying to it when performing that exercise. You will hear varying things within the fitness space. Some people prioritize the load, lift big weights to get big muscles. Some people prioritize partials or lengthened partials, or the stretch or the contraction. Whatever the modality is, I favor isolation, because if you fully isolate a muscle, it does all the work and it has to adapt to the work that you're doing when performing that exercise. That is just my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below and say your favorite calf exercises. But without further ado, let's get to it. So, coming in spot number 5 are weighted walks. Any sort of a weighted walk will do. It could be a farmer's walk. It could be a weighted backpack hike. It could be a yoke run or a sled drag. Any sort of weighted walk will do. Now, obviously, these are not calf isolation exercise. This is more of a supplementary bonus to your calf training that you could add in to help accumulate some more volume in the calves at a heavy weight. So, the way that I would program this is not in your normal calf training sessions. I would actually just adjust different elements of your training to emphasize the calves more. So what I mean by that is, if you normally do cardio and you go for a half an hour walk normally, you could maybe change that for a 15-minute weighted walk, and you will still get your cardio in, but you'll also accumulate some heavier volume into your calves. Or if you normally do 10 minutes on the rower as a warm-up for your leg days, instead you could do 10 minutes of heavier weighted walks, and that should help to grow your calves. Now, obviously, that isn't the same as the rest of your calf training. I would use the rest of these exercises for your standard calf training, and as I said in the intro, I would program them with normal reps and sets accordingly. But this is just a bonus thing that you could do to help accumulate more heavy volume into the calves, and it should help to grow your calves. And coming in spot number 4 are Tibialis raises. Now, they train the often over neglected anterior tibialis, which is actually the front of your shin. So these won't increase the size of the normal calf muscle belly, but they are going to increase the size of the lower leg. And often when people say they want to increase their calves, that's what they mean, just generally the size around your shin. So tibialis raises get a fantastic contraction at the top and a great stretch at the bottom, and you isolate that anterior tibialis very well. It is a muscle that you've probably never trained in isolation, so you will probably be very weak at this exercise and burn out at it very quickly. But it is a great exercise for rounding out that lower leg. You can perform them either on a tib bar, which is the main way to perform them and the best way to perform them. But if you don't have access to that, you could use a kettlebell and they still work great. Overall, tibialis raises are a fantastic exercise for helping to increase the overall size of the lower leg. And coming in spot number 3 are standard calf raises. The easiest of all of the exercises on this list to perform. You literally just need to grab your weight in some form. It could be dumbbells, it could be kettlebells. You could just get a bar and place it on your back and walk out. You just need the floor and some weight. During standard calf raises, you get a fantastic contraction at the top. What you need to make sure you're doing, however, is raising straight up. You don't want to be sickling your ankle. So if you go up and your ankles are rolling outwards, you can get pain down the outside of your ankle. That is also not going to effectively contract the entire calf. You want to keep your heels in line with the front of your toes, and you want to keep your balls of your feet flat on the floor and calf raise straight up. You will also isolate the calves very well during this exercise, and you can load this exercise very heavy. The only weakness of standard calf raises is that you don't get a great stretch. However, they are fantastic because they are so accessible, so easy to perform, and they will still help you to develop great calves. And coming in spot number 2 are seated calf raises. Now, seated calf raises share all of the advantages of standard calf raises. Other than practicality, you need a seated calf raise machine, but you get all of the other benefits. You get a fantastic contraction at the top of the movement. You isolate the calf fantastically, and you can load the exercise very heavy. However, there are also 2 other distinct advantages seated calf raises have over regular calf raises. The first and main one is that you don't require any balance. So with regular calf raises, you are often faced with a choice to sacrifice some load. So if you've got dumbbells or kettlebells, you might have to put one of them down to grip something for stability, which obviously is not great. Or you can go about doing your regular calf raises, but you might have to do one of 2 things. You might have to rush the reps and go straight up and down because you don't have the balance to fully take your time and squeeze. That lowers the time and detention on the calves, which is not great for training them. Or you might shift your weight about and suddenly train one side much heavier than the other side. It is all a bit chaotic. Obviously, with seated calf raises, you don't have to worry about holding the weight at all. It is simply grounded down through the pads on your quads, and you are locked in position. There is no balance requirement, which means you can take your time from rep to rep. You can really get that fantastic contraction at the top of the movement because there are no balance demands. And that brings me on to the second advantage, which is that your mind-muscle connection is much better with the calf. You can fully focus on the exercise, fully focus on squeezing and training the calves, and you will be able to train the calves more effectively. Overall, seated calf raises are a brilliant exercise for helping you develop your calves. And coming in spot number 1 are elevated calf raises, particularly fixed plane of resistance elevated calf raises, because then you don't have any balance issue. So it could be a seated elevated calf raise, it could be a Smith machine elevated calf raise, but the key element is elevating the balls of your feet and having your heels hang down over the edge. Elevated calf raises have all of the benefits of any other calf raise in that you get that fantastic contraction at the top of the movement, you isolate the calf fantastically, and you can load the exercise very heavy. However, you also provide an amazing stretch to the calf in that bottom position. And because your heels are not lowering all the way down to the floor, your calf isn't resting in that position, so you're providing tension to the calf throughout the entire range of motion and for the entire duration of the set. That means that you will get more time and attention throughout the set, and you will definitely help develop big calves. Overall, elevated calf raises are by far my #1 exercise for helping you to develop your calves, because they tick all of the boxes for things that I am looking for from an exercise. Now, I should say that the real #1 exercise is a mixture of exercises. That is because of something called the law of accommodation, which states that if you do the same thing over and over, you eventually get worse at it. That is what Arnold meant when he said you need to shock the muscle.
Have to go and use the shocking principle.
You need to shock the muscle into adapting by changing up your training stimulus. That is what muscle building is. It's an adaptation to the stress that we're providing to the muscles when we work out. If you just use the same training stimulus, the same exercise over and over, eventually your muscles are done adapting, they've done all the adaptations they can, and they're like, yeah, I can deal with standard calf raises all day. I can deal with weighted walks all day. So you need to change up the exercises to spark new gains. That is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that good stuff. There will be a link in the description to my coaching services. If you don't want to have to bother finding the best exercise for every muscle, designing your own program, wondering if it's good or not, and trying to keep yourself accountable. If you want somebody to devise an optimal program based on your goals, your equipment, your time available, teach you optimal exercise form so that you are performing every exercise in the safest and most effective way possible, I am here. Check that out in the link in the description below. Thank you very much for watching and have a great day.